सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
So, this will be lecture number 32 on our ongoing series on mechanical measurements. We have been discussing in the last couple of lectures the details about how to measure heat flux, and we have in fact looked at a few of them, and the transient method of heat flux measurement happens to be one of the important techniques which is useful in practice. The reason why transient methods are useful, the main reason is that many experiments do not last for too long, especially those which involve very high heat flux cannot be a continuous process. For example, if you have a flow inside a nozzle, in the case of space applications you have nozzles with very high temperature gases moving through the nozzle passages, and the entire experiment may last only for a few seconds. Sometimes in high speed wind tunnels the flow itself may be only for a few seconds, and sometimes it may be even for a few milliseconds or microseconds. So the idea is to measure the heat flux during the very short period for which the experiment itself takes place, and therefore the transient method of heat flux measurement is geared for or directed towards measurement of heat flux in those applications where the process itself is going to last for very short period of time, especially high heat flux environment, because they cannot be sustained over a long period of time. So what I am going to do today is to look at two types of transient methods, one which we call the slug type heat flux sensor, and the second one is the thin film heat flux gauge. This thin film comes up again and again, and of course the way we are going to use it here is to use it in the transient mode of operation. So I will be taking one or two examples which are going to be giving some idea about the numbers which characterize some of these heat flux sensors. So let us look at the slug type transducer. Basically the slug type transducer consists of a slug of material. This is the material which we call as a slug, or it's the heat capacity element. So the mass of the slug multiplied by the specific heat of the material is actually the capacity of this element. If the slug temperature does not go through very large variations during the operation of the slug type transducer, the specific heat may be more or less assumed to be constant. Of course, if the temperature variations are very large, then you have to account for the specific heat variation with respect to temperature. Basically what we are going to do is to look at if the slug is, for example, it has the top surface which is exposed to the heat flux which has to be measured, and we have fixed a thermocouple. In fact, the thermocouple in principle could be placed everywhere, anywhere inside the slug, but in this particular case it is placed at the back surface, and the temperature response of the back surface of the slug is actually going to be measured as a function of time, and indirectly we are going to find out what is the Q which gave rise to the temperature increase here. We will look at two cases, one where the slug is so thin in this direction, the delta which I have shown here is the thickness of the slug in the direction parallel to the applied heat flux. If this thickness is very small and if the thermal conductivity of the material is large enough, then we can assume that the time taken for the temperature information from the top to the bottom is very small. That means that the entire slug at any time t after the start of the experiment can be assumed to be a uniform value of temperature. Okay. This is one assumption which can be made in case delta is small and the thermal conductivity material is large enough, so that we can assume that. That means that the entire slug is going to actually go up in temperature uniformly throughout. And of course, in practice you will have to insulate it or isolate the slug from the rest of the universe or let us the rest of the space. And so what you have is you have a casing or the housing, and the entire slug transducer is mounted on a base, and the temperature of the casing or this housing is assumed to be held at a value which is probably equal to the value of the temperature of the slug before the start of the experiment. So initial temperature and the final temperature for the housing is supposed to be the same. In fact, the housing and the slug are not in contact with each other. Some way of isolating it is required, and the housing itself is a good insulation, so that it thermally insulates the slug. Of course, there may be a small residual amount of heat transfer or heat loss, because no perfect insulator is found in practice. Therefore, we can allow for the small loss by changing the analysis slightly by including a certain small loss coefficient. So let us just look at what is going to happen. We have Q, the heat flux. We will assume it is uniform within this diameter of the slug, and it is illuminating the top, or it is applied on the top surface, which is a circle of some diameter, and the Q multiplied by the area of this slug which is exposed to the heat flux is the amount of heat which is entering the slug. This must be equal to the rate of change of the internal energy of the slug, which can be determined from the mass, specific heat, and the temperature rise product. So let me just do a simple analysis by going to the board and explain how we are going to account for the heat loss. So we have the slug. I am showing it as a rectangle. Actually it is a circular cylindrical specimen, so we can say that, and we can assume that it is more or less well insulated on the sides, and we have a certain thickness delta, and then we have the Q which is coming in at the top surface, and the area of this surface is A. So the slug has got a mass of slug equal to m, and the specific heat of the slug material is C. So this will be so many kilograms, and this will be in joules per kilogram degrees Celsius. If Q is uniform in time, okay, it is uniformly impinging on the front surface of the slug, the heat received is nothing but QA per unit time per second. QA per unit time. So the increase in the enthalpy of the slug or internal energy of the slug for a solid material, there is no difference of the slug, again per unit time, this will be nothing but the rate of change of the internal energy. This will be assuming the mass and specific heat to be constant. M and C can be taken outside, dt by dt. This is under ideal conditions where this is perfect insulation. And also I am ignoring any heat loss from the front surface which is receiving the heat. Therefore, there is no heat loss from the front surface. Of course, these two assumptions are not going to be perfectly valid, and therefore, we may have to apply a small correction later on. So, all we have to do is to now equate the two. So, we will say mc dt by dt must be equal to qa, or dt by dt equal to qa by mc, and initially at t equal to 0, we are assuming that T is equal to T naught, which is the temperature of the slug at T is equal to 0, and therefore, I can say that if you integrate this once, you will get T is equal to Qa by mc multiplied by T plus some constant of integration, and putting T equal to 0, T equal to T naught, I will say that is what is going to happen. In other words, the temperature increase T minus T naught is equal to Qa by mc into T. This is a linear variation. Of course, this is not going to be strictly correct, but it is a good approximation in the case of a thin slug which is going to be used as a heat flux gauge. Now, suppose we assume if there is some heat loss, how can we account for it? We can account for it by saying that the heat loss is proportional to the temperature difference between the slug and the surrounding to which it is going to lose heat. And in this case, I am going to assume that the surrounding is at some temperature T infinity, which we can adjust later. So, heat loss can be given by. So, what I will do is heat loss may be taking place. If you go back to the previous note here, the heat loss may actually take place all around to the region surrounding the slug in all directions. But what I will do is I will equate it to an equivalent heat loss per unit area from the top surface. Okay, I will base it on the area of A which is receiving the heat. Therefore, I will adjust the coefficient such that the heat loss to the surroundings is given by, we will say QL heat loss is proportional to some coefficient KL, which we call as the loss coefficient, multiplied by T minus T infinity, where infinity is a suitably chosen temperature, which of course we will see what is going to be later. And this KL is actually in watts per degree Celsius. That means it is like the product of a heat transfer coefficient and the area. In this case, I am basing it on the area capital A. Let us see what is the effect of this. So, for that, let us rewrite the equation. If you go back here, you will see that I had mc dt by dt equal to qa, but because there is a loss, I have to subtract from qa the loss part. So, if we do that, the equation will change as is shown in the next slide. So, we have mc dt by dt, this is the rate of change of the internal energy of the sensor, equal to qa, which is the heat flux which is impinging on the sensor, minus the loss part KL into T minus T infinity. This will be the equation. So, we will say this is gain and this is loss, and of course, this is the net effect. The assumption I am going to make is if we divide throughout by mc, you will see that you are going to get the following equation equal to qa by mc minus the loss coefficient KL divided by mc multiplied by T minus T infinity. So, this is a small quantity. See, what we are trying to argue out is that if this is small amount of loss is present, this term is going to be much smaller than the first term. So, I will say this small and I will indicate its magnitude by epsilon. The idea is that the t minus t infinity multiplied by epsilon is small compared to the first term. Of course, then you will see that the dominant effect will be the effect of the input heat flux, and this will be a small change in the response. So I can do the following. I will assume that T is given by some dominant term T naught plus epsilon times T1, and of course higher order terms will be there with epsilon squared and so on. I will say plus order epsilon squared neglected. We neglect these terms. So all I have to do is to substitute this into the equation here, and then you will see that dt by dt will become dt naught by dt plus epsilon times dt1 by dt. The left hand side is going to become this, and on the right hand side I have got this is a constant, and this is of the order of epsilon. Therefore, this term must be equal to this, and the second term must be equal to the second term here. So I will go to the next sheet and write it out. So you can see that dt naught by dt must be equal to qa by mc, and dt1 by dt, which is now multiplied by epsilon. If you go back to the previous, you will see that dt naught plus epsilon times dt1 by dt, epsilon is multiplying this, epsilon is also multiplying this. Therefore, you will see that what I will get is, it will be t minus t infinity with a negative sign. That negative sign is coming from the fact that it is a loss term. So this can be integrated as we did earlier, assuming that t is equal to t naught at t equal to 0. Therefore, T1 must be equal to 0 at t equal to 0, because t equal to t naught, and therefore we require T1 equal to 0. And if you integrate this, t naught will come out to be what we had earlier, qa by mc into t naught into, I am sorry, this is t minus plus t naught. And if I integrate this dt1 by dt equal to this one, so what I will do is I will substitute it here. So I will substitute here. Therefore, dt1 by dt must be equal to minus t naught is qa by mc into t plus t naught, now minus t infinity. So if you assume that these t naught and t infinity are the same, equal to 0 if t infinity is equal to t naught, otherwise that also will float around. So now I can integrate the second equation here. So this will give you t1 is equal to minus qa t squared by 2mc plus a constant of integration, and because t1 equal to 0 at t equal to 0 plus c1 which is equal to 0 by the initial condition. Therefore, I can write the solution to the problem by adding these two terms. Therefore, t will be equal to t naught plus epsilon t1, and t naught is qa by mc into t minus epsilon is kl by mc multiplied by qa by 2mc into t squared. So this becomes the solution with small amount of solution with small amount of loss. So if I were to make a plot of the response, I will get the following. Without loss I will get a straight line, this is without loss. What I am plotting is the temperature T minus T naught on the y axis and time on the x axis. With loss it will become slightly nonlinear, it will go like that. This will be with loss. Of course, very small times the difference will be very small, and as the time increases you can see that this is a quadratic term is going to become important when T is large. So, let me take a simple example which I call as example number 35, and I will work out the response of the. We will first look at the formulation. Example 35, we have a slug type heat flux sensor which is made of copper and it is 3 millimeters thick. It receives a heat flux of 10,000 watts per square meter on the exposed face. Initially the slug and the casing are at the same temperature equal to 30 degrees. This is nothing but your T naught and T infinity, we are assuming it to be 30 degrees, and the maximum temperature increase allowed for the slug is given as 50 degrees. We do not want to go beyond 50 degrees for the slug temperature. And what is the duration for which the sensor can be used, that is the number 1, and assume, of course we want to assume a loss coefficient area product, that is KL of 0.5 watts per degree Celsius. Over this small change in the temperature we can assume the loss coefficient to be given by this, and let us go back to the board and work out the solution to this problem. So, this is example 35. It is just the use of the formula we derived in the previously, and all I will do is I will just label all the things given. This is material, slug is copper, slug is of copper, and copper properties can be taken from a handbook. The density is 8890 kilogram per cubic meter, and the specific heat is 398 joules per kilogram Kelvin, and the heat flux is given in the problem is Q equal to 10,000 watts per square meter. This is specified in the problem, and the initial temperature T naught is the same as the casing temperature, which we will take it as 30 degrees Celsius, and the T max minus T naught, the difference, the rise in temperature is given as 50 degrees. So, the difference in temperature between the slug at the maximum value of the temperature minus the initial value is given as 50 degrees. So, let us calculate the various quantities which appear there. QA by MC, of course A is not mentioned in the problem, so we can calculate based on A equal to 1 square meter. In actual practice A will be a very small quantity, and anyway it does not come into the picture at all. So, what we require is QA by MC. If I put A equal to 1 meter squared, everywhere it will be A equal to 1. So, Q is 10 to the power of 4 or 10,000 divided by mass of the slug thickness has been given as 3 millimeters, and you see that the mass will be nothing but rho into volume, rho into the volume is nothing but A into delta. So, this becomes simply rho into delta, because A will cancel off with that A. That is why we do not require the A in this problem. So, this is what happens. So, 10,000 divided by rho is 8890 multiplied by 0.003 multiplied by 398 for the value of C, and this comes out to be 0.942, and the units is degrees Celsius per second. Degrees Celsius per second is the unit of this quantity, and KL by MC is given by 0.5 divided by, and KL has actually absorbed that A, and therefore A will cancel off with that. So, KL can be simply taken as the 0.5 here, divided by M will be the product of density and the thickness, rho C, rho into delta multiplied by C, the same denominator. So 8890 multiplied by 0.003 multiplied by 398. And this comes to 0.000047. The unit is per second. So the two characteristic numbers describing the problem are obtained. So all I have to do is to now substitute into the solution. So if you remember, the solution is T is equal to, or we will go back and write it from the beginning. So I think we'll look back. I think it was somewhere here. The solution is given, T equal to QA by MC into T minus KL by MC into QA by 2MC T squared. So what I have to do is I have to put T equal to T max. So this will be T max minus T naught, okay, equal to this, and that means that T equal to T max, and this will also be T max. So all I have to do is to substitute the values for T max minus T naught which is given, QA by MC which was calculated, KL by MC which is calculated, and then I will have to work it out. So we will do that. So the equation is T max minus T naught is 50. That must be equal to 0.942 into T minus 0.000047 into 0.942 multiplied by T squared by 2, where T is T max. That is the period for which the heat flux sensor can be used without exceeding the temperature which is specified. And you see that this equation is peculiar. This is the dominant term and this is the small term. So what I can do is I can rewrite in the form T max equal to, so 50 divided by 0.942. So I am just retaining it here. I am dividing by this, I will send to the other side, plus 0.000047 divided by 2 into T max. So I am just rewriting in this particular form. So the value of T will be calculated. So if you ignore this, you will get the value of first approximation for T, and then you put it here, you will get the better approximation. So if you say T is equal to T naught is roughly equal to 50 divided by 0.942, so many seconds, it comes to 53.08 seconds. And now what I do is I substitute it here and improve it. So T max improved will be equal to 53.08 plus 0.000047 divided by 2 into 53.08 whole square, and this turns out to be 53.15 seconds. Because the loss coefficient is very small, the time over which it can be used without exceeding the temperature specified for the slug is about 53 seconds. So roughly we can say about 50 seconds we can use the slug without exceeding the temperature which is specified. Actually, in any experiment involving the measurement of heat flux using the transient technique, we are going to conduct the experiment only to a short period. In this case, we will have to stop the experiment at the end of 50 seconds in this particular case, roughly the 50 seconds. So with this background, let us look at the second part of the problem. If the slug is not, in the previous case if you remember, the slug was assumed to be thin, so that the temperature throughout the slug was the same at any given time t. There was no variation of the temperature with the slug. Within the slug itself there was no temperature variation at any given temperature any time t. That means that we have assumed basically that the slug is like a lumped system. But in practice what will happen is, if the slug is not going to satisfy the requirement, then the front surface temperature and the back surface temperature, there will be a certain lag in the time. So I have just indicated what is going to be expected in actual practice. If you have a slug which is not thin in the sense we used earlier, the front surface and the rear surface temperatures are going to follow slightly different ways of. Initially the front surface temperature will go faster, and then it will go more or less at a linear rate, and the back surface temperature will go slightly, will lag behind, and then again it will catch up and it will go in a straight line variation with respect to time, or linear variation with respect to time. And if I again have certain operational limit for the transducer, so I can say that up to some t equal to t max, I can use the slug sensor so that the temperature is not exceeded, the temperature limit specified is not exceeded. Secondly, I also have to find out what is the time over which the back surface temperature is going to be linear. So initially there is non-linearity, and then it becomes linear. The analysis is somewhat complex, but it can be done, and we can show that the following formulae are going to be useful in that one, and I will just give the formulae without proof, and that I will do on the board. So let us go to the board. So the with time lag, it can be shown that there is a certain thickness which you call as the optimum thickness for the slug, such that the portion wherein the temperature is more or less going linearly, so we will call it as delta T linear for the back surface, is the largest possible given the highest temperature the slug can be exposed to. Okay. So what is this delta optimum? It is given by the following formula. If the thermal conductivity of the material of the slug is K, and the temperature maximum it can withstand is T, delta T max, that is the maximum temperature minus initial temperature, divided by 1.366 into Q, where Q is the input heat flux. This is one formula. The second relationship is that the delta T linear is then given by 0.366 KT max or K delta T max whole squared divided by Q squared times alpha, where alpha is the thermal diffusivity of the slug material. Again, a very simple problem can tell us what is going on. So I will just go to the problem example 36. So we have a heat flux sensor which is made of stainless steel in this case, and the properties of stainless steel are also specified here. Density is 7817 kilograms per cubic meter, specific heat is 460 joules per kilogram degree Celsius, and the thermal conductivity is 16.3 watts per meter degrees Celsius. If you remember what we did in the previous example, example 35, we had a copper slug, and copper has a very high thermal conductivity of about 400 watts per meter degree Celsius, and we are replacing it with a stainless steel, because stainless steel has got a much lower thermal conductivity and also lower thermal diffusivity. Therefore, it will the copper sensor is useful for satisfying the requirement that it is a thin sensor with more or less uniform temperature throughout, the stainless steel sensor will not satisfy that requirement because of the small value of the thermal conductivity and the correspondingly small value of the thermal diffusivity. So, we would like to find out what is the optimum thickness in this case when the slug is subjected to an incident heat flux of 10 to the power of 5 watts per meter square. I am just now increasing the heat flux. You can see that I have increased the heat flux to 10 to the power of 5 because the sensor is going to be useful for measuring very high heat fluxes, and therefore I have taken 10 to the power of 5 watts per square meter. And I want to find out what is the optimum thickness for the sensor and also what is the duration for which the back surface of the slug shows a linear response. This is just plugging in the values into the formula which I gave a little while earlier and then finding out what is happening. So, we just use of these two formulas. So, let us look at the example number 36. I will quickly work through the numbers because it is just plug and play. So, delta optimum is equal to K times delta T maximum divided by 1.366 times Q, and K is 16.3. I am using everything in SI units, therefore, I do not have to worry about them. Delta T is given as 100 degrees. I thought it was given as 50 there. Now, I have taken 100. I have taken delta T equal to 100 divided by 1.366 into Q is 10 to the power of 5. So, in the problem we can simply change the delta T available to 100 instead of 50, and this gives you 0.012 meters or 1.2 centimeters for the thickness of the slug. It is a fairly thick slug. In the case of copper slug which we used in the previous example, it was only 3 millimeters. It has got a higher thermal conductivity also, and now I have made it thicker and also the thermal conductivity is lower. Therefore, it becomes a candidate for the second type of application. So, we can also calculate the delta T linear. So, 0.366 multiplied by the K T whole squared, K is nothing but 16.3 into 100 whole squared divided by alpha Q squared, Q is 10 to the power of 5 whole squared. Alpha itself is given by K by rho C, instead of I will write it like this, 16.3 divided by rho is 7817 multiplied by C is 460. These are the values which were earlier given on the board, and this will be in seconds, and this comes to about 21.5 seconds. So, the slug can operate for about a little more than 20 seconds without exceeding the 100 degrees temperature rise which is specified in the problem. So, the sensor can be used to measure a heat flux of 10 to the power of 5 watts per meter squared for a period, a brief period about 20 seconds in this particular case. So, let us look at the second type of application, which we call as a thin film heat flux gauge, and these are used for measurement of transients over very small periods of time. You had a copper of 3 millimeter thickness, we had a stainless steel of about 12 millimeter thickness. Now, we are not talking about millimeters of thickness, we are talking about very thin gauge. So, what is the difference between the present thin film heat flux gauge and the previous slug gauge? Let us look at the differences. One, for example, I can have a platinum film of very small thickness delta which is in the micron region, maybe a few microns, maybe 10 microns, and we have a substrate which is of a material which is chosen suitably to have the desired thermal properties, and I am going to subject the front surface of the platinum film or the surface of the platinum film to the heat flux which is to be measured. So, in this case what will happen is that if the thickness of the substrate is large enough, when I say thickness, it is the thermal thickness of the substrate which I am talking about. If it is large enough, then the platinum film will be like it is non-existent as far as the heat transfer is concerned. It does not take part in the heat transfer. It simply responds to the temperature of the surface, and therefore the platinum film is used because its resistance will change with temperature. And if I measure the resistance of the platinum film as a function of time, I am actually measuring the surface temperature as a function of time. Okay? So, if the heat flux is constant, the surface temperature will vary in a particular fashion. So, how does it vary? That is given in the next slide, I think. The response of the material, we are not talking about the response of the platinum now. Platinum is only a passive thing which is going to just follow the temperature of the surface. The temperature of the surface is determined by the rate at which heat is coming in and the rate at which heat is removed from the surface by the substrate material. And we can in fact show by a very simple solution to the one dimensional heat equation that the temperature of the substrate. So, if you go back to the previous slide, I have measured x in a direction perpendicular to the surface, and I am now talking about the temperature within the substrate at any location x at a given time t. So, T x t multiplied by k by qs, where k is the thermal conductivity of the substrate material, Ts qs is the surface heat flux input at the surface, is equal to square root of 4 alpha t by pi, where alpha is the thermal diffusivity of the substrate material, e to the power of minus eta squared, where eta is x by 2 root alpha t, is a non-dimensional variable. X is the distance, t is the time, alpha is the thermal diffusivity, minus x times the complementary error function of eta. The student need not worry about the error function and so on. It is possible to, these are all functions are all given in the form of tables in books on mathematical handbooks of mathematics. So, we can just take it from there, and also we will, for the present, we will simply assume that the solution is obtained by a suitable method of solving the one dimensional heat equation. And in fact, if you put t equal to 0 in this equation, that is for the, I am sorry, if you put the x equal to 0 in this equation, you will get the surface temperature, and the surface temperature of the substrate is exactly equal to the temperature of the film, because it is a very thin film which is formed on the surface. It has got very little inertia and it will follow the temperature of the surface faithfully, and in fact the temperature of the surface follows a square root of time relationship. So, k Ts by Qs, if I put x equal to 0 in this equation, will give you square root of 4 alpha t by pi, and this can be written as 1.128 square root of alpha t. Alpha is the thermal diffusivity material of the substrate. And let us look at the typical variation of the temperature of the surface. I have taken two materials, one is concrete, the other one is aluminum, just to indicate what you are going to expect. In the case of concrete, very little heat is transferred to the material inside. Therefore, the surface temperature increases rapidly, and you can see that it is parabolic and it is a square root of time dependence. However, if you use aluminum for example, the surface temperature increases very marginally, because most of the heat is conducted into the material, and therefore, for the measurement of heat flux, if you want a sizable temperature change, I must use a material with small thermal diffusivity, small conductivity and so on. Okay? And now if I compare the response at a depth compared to the response at the surface, I just have to take the ratio of the two quantities, and you will see that this is what is going to happen. And why this is important, we will see in a moment. It is useful in determining the substrate thickness. What is the thickness of the substrate required given the properties of substrate, such that we can assume the substrate to be a semi-infinite solid. That means that the surface temperature will show the square root of time dependence only if the substrate is thick enough to justify this. So, I have taken this figure from the paper by Kinnear and Liu, which appeared in AIA 1998-24504, design and calibration testing of transient thin film heat transfer gauges. So, I have 4 different curves here drawn at different times. First one is drawn at t equal to 5 milliseconds, the ratio of the two, and you see that within 5 milliseconds a substrate which is even more than about 0.25 millimeters is thick enough, whereas if you are going to have t equal to 1 second, you see that even 3 millimeters is not thick enough. So, the thickness of the substrate has to be so chosen that within the duration of the experiment during which we are going to apply the heat flux at the surface and make the measurement, the substrate appears to be a semi infinite medium. What is the indication for that? The temperature at the depth, the maximum depth available will be the thickness of the material. The thickness at that thickness value, this should be as small as possible compared to the surface. In this case, if you say that about 0.1, 0.01% or less, then you can see that 3 millimeter may be just enough for the case of, in this case, for up to t equal to 1 second. Suppose I talk about very rapid changes and very rapid experiments which are conducted in very short time. I may even go for 5 milliseconds or even less. You see that you need not have a very thick substrate. The thickness of the substrate could be very small and still it will appear as though it is a semi infinite medium as far as the response of the temperature of the surface is concerned. So, let us look at some of the materials which are used for the electrically insulating substrate. I should mention that the platinum film, which is basically applied on the surface of the substrate, is going to be a conducting material whose resistance is what I am going to measure, and therefore, the substrate should be an insulating substrate, electrically insulating. And it so happens that some of the materials which have been used are given here. Macor is some kind of plastic material, then Pyrex is a glass material, quartz again a glassy material. So, these materials are used basically in making such heat flux sensors, and the density, specific heat, thermal conductivity and the product of rho Ck to the power half, the square root of the product of rho C and K is also given here, and the units are grams per centimeter cube, joules per gram Kelvin here, joules per centimeter second Kelvin, because I have taken it from the paper which I just now referred, and therefore I have just given the values as they are given there. If one wants, you can convert these to SI units, joules per centimeter squared per Kelvin per centimeter to the second to the power half. Okay. So, just notice what are the values we have in this last column: 0.171, 0.153, 0.153. These are the range of values which are required for the substrate. And if I look at the film material like platinum, see the value, it is 1.4. So, the value is almost about 10 times, there is a 10 times difference in the value of rho Ck product. It is very important for the, I have given platinum, nickel and copper. Platinum is a very useful instrument, useful material, because we have already seen that the platinum is used as a resistance of RTD material is also platinum, and its properties are very well known and so on. So, platinum film is sensors are used in practice. A typical construction for the sensor will be a thin film of platinum, which is usually obtained by either painting or by vapor vacuum deposition of the material as a very thin platinum film on the substrate, in this case the Macor substrate. We take 2 gold leads from the 2 ends of the platinum film, and then we have a conducting epoxy and the constant and leads are attached to that. Therefore, essentially this is a resistance thermometer, the film itself behaving or acting as a resistance thermometer, and the temperature of the surface when it is exposed to a heat flux is measured by following the resistance, and you know already that the resistance increases with temperature more or less linearly, and if you do not allow the temperature to go to swing by very large values, the linear assumption may be justified. So, if we assume that initially the temperature is room temperature, and after the heat flux is imposed on the surface, the temperature will go up, all I have to do is to measure the resistance and as a function of time, and that will be like measuring the temperature versus as a function of time, and it can be calibrated suitably. So, a typical response of a sensor of this type I have given in the form of electrical output millivolt per, in the x axis I have got square root of time, and time is in milliseconds. So, time is in milliseconds, I have taken the square root of time. Therefore, if you plot the temperature of the surface as a function of square root of time, you are going to get a linear relationship, and you can see that the linear relationship is more or less obtained, excepting probably at a very close, very small time there may be some problem there, but you can see that there is also some noise in this particular measurement, but in the response is very closely a square root of time response. The experiment has been conducted in two different media, air and glycerin, and you can see in case of glycerin the heat transfer is much more rapid, and therefore you have a smaller slope for the line, whereas in air it is a larger slope. So, with this basically we will look at one a simple solution to a simple problem, so that the numbers become clear to us. So, we have a thin plate of film of platinum of size 10 by 2 millimeters, 10 millimeters long and 2 millimeter wide. It is deposited as a substrate of Macor. The thickness of the platinum film is 0.01 millimeters, 10 microns. Discuss the performance of this as a heat flux gauge. So, assume that the film and the substrate are at 20 degrees Celsius initially, and the maximum temperature of the film is not to exceed 200 degrees Celsius when it is exposed to a flux of 1 megawatts per square meter. So, I am now slowly increasing the heat flux. I started with 10,000, it went to 10 to the power of 5 in the previous example, and this last example we are having a megawatts per square meter, and let us look at the example on the board. So, I will work out the numbers. So, we have this example 37, thin film sensor, the platinum has got a length of 10 millimeters by 2 millimeters. This is the length and this is the width, and multiplied by 0.01 millimeter, this is your delta. So, platinum has a resistivity which is also given the symbol rho. This is the electrical resistivity 10.5 into 10 to the power of minus 8 ohm meter at 20 degrees Celsius, and the alpha we already are familiar with. This alpha is the coefficient of resistance with respect to temperature. A temperature coefficient of resistance is 0.00392 per degree Celsius. So, I can actually calculate the resistance of the element initially. Temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, I think it is 20 degrees Celsius. And I can calculate the already I am given at 20 degrees what is the rho. I can calculate the resistance at 20 degrees R20 is rho L by A. Rho is your 10.5 into 10 to the power of minus 8 L is 10 millimeters. So, that will be 0.01 meter divided by area of cross section will be 2 millimeters, 0.002 multiplied by 0.01 millimeters. So, 10 to the power of minus 5. This works out to about 0.53 ohm. The resistance is 0.35. And in fact, I can calculate the resistance at 200 degrees when the film sensor, thin film sensor is allowed to go up to that temperature. The value will be just R20 multiplied by 1 plus alpha into 200 minus 20. So, all I have to do is to plug in all the values. This comes to about 0.904. If the output of the sensor is proportional to the resistance, you will see that it will go up almost by a factor of 2 during the operation of the sensor in this particular example. Now, I can calculate for the heat flux which is incident 10 to the power of 6 watts per square meter, 1 megawatt per square meter, that is given, and we K delta T s by Q is equal to 1.128 square root of alpha t, where alpha K, these are the properties of the MACOR which was given in the table form. Okay. And if delta T s is a maximum value, then I have to find out what is T max. I will just say this delta T s is the maximum value. If I put the maximum value here, I will get the maximum. So, I can write T max, you have to this square root of alpha divided by K, square root of alpha by K is nothing but square root of alpha is square root of K by rho C, where rho is the density here, divided by K, this is nothing but 1 over square root of K rho C. That is the reason why in the table we gave the product of these three quantities. So, all I will do is I will just say that it is equal to K rho C multiplied by T s delta T s max divided by 1.128 Q whole squared, and I will just substitute K is 1.46 for the MACOR, rho is 2520 and C is 790 multiplied by delta T max is 200 minus 20 divided by 1.128 in 10 to the power 6 whole squared, and this T max comes to about 0.074 seconds or about 7 milliseconds. So, the sensor will be able to withstand this particular heat flux for about 7 milliseconds, and let us go back and see from the curve given here, we can look at the T is equal to 7 millisecond is between these two, 5 millisecond, 25 millisecond. 5 millisecond is this is 25. So, you see that if I make the substrate about 0.5 millimeters, it is going to satisfy the requirement. So, a very thin layer of MACOR on the surface of which I am going to have this film of 10 microns deposited will be a good sensor for this particular application. We will stop here for today. Thank you.